Entrepreneurship has really been a part of the theme, the new normal. Where are we going in this new economy? I think that's going to be the story that Mark Schniepp's going to talk to you about now. Without any further ado, Dr. Mark Schniepp with the forecast.
All right. Everybody took a break. I should wait till they come back. All right. I guess it was more than Bill that had coffee. All right. I've got a lot to show you today because a lot of changes are occurring. In fact, that's the title I stole from Bob Dylan. And I'm also going to talk about the new normal, okay, and follow up Bill's presentation on how we see things changing now at this point in the economic cycle. So I've got a lot to share with you today. So let's get started. And I want to start by, again, monitoring or gauging the overall sentiment in the room about business conditions. You know, I've done this before. For those of you who have come to these conferences, I tend to look at these, like a continuous event in which I change the content, but it does evolve. I've asked this thing before. You've been very pessimistic in the past in general. So here we go, February 2015. How would you rate current business conditions, okay, that you are involved with? So, 2014 was a great year for me. Who says that? Okay, not many. A few. At least it's more than zero. Okay, maybe 10%. It's looking like 2015 will be the best year of the cycle. Okay, a few more. A lot of you are not answering here. Conditions are good, but not the best. Okay, more of you are filling in. All right. Just okay, but could be, a lot better. Okay, not many of you are saying that. Okay, so this one, help me, Rhonda. No one's saying that. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so there's a little more optimism than previous surveys. Not a tremendous amount, but, certainly more. The correct answer is A and B. So you should have answered those. All right, and if you haven't, then something's weird, because I'm going to show you why A and B are the correct answers, as I have in the past. But let me start with some startling observations that we're seeing here in the early part of the year. Continued rally in the stock market, collapse of gasoline prices, collapse of interest rates, sharp rise in the U.S. dollar, strengthening of the California economy, much stronger than we would have ever imagined, so that's why I put it in the startling column. And this is despite year 4 of drought, the disappointing housing market. All right, and the weather's been a little bit startling overall. Hey, here's the annual appreciation rate on the Dow Jones Industrial Average going back to 2007. And, for the last 4 years, including this year, this would be the 5th year, in which zero, we have hardly any return. I mean, we're basically about where we started on January 1st. The gain's been 117%. I mean, who would have ever thought that? This is a startling observation. All right? So that's something to ponder. Here's the other one that it's hard to get our hands on, our eyes on this, is Treasury bond yields, interest rates in general. I mean, yesterday they closed at 1.9% on the 10-year. All right, and these are daily observations going back a year. Right, you can just see that slide. Would never have guessed this. Okay, we think this is about the lowest it's going to be. Of course, we've said that before. All right, but this time, with the Fed poised and making a lot of squeaky noises about it to raise interest rates this summer. And with the economy getting stronger, look for interest rates to start rising. I'll talk more about that. Then the weather in early 2015. I mean, in the east, there's all this snow. In the west, we have drought in California. First, there was Juno, then Linus. Did you hear about these? This week, the East Coast is experiencing the coldest temperatures of the season. All right. Meanwhile, we had the driest January on record in California. Okay, today it'll be 83 and sunny here. right? And we're coming off the warmest year in California since records have been kept, 2014. We still have drought, but it's easing a little bit. 10 inches fell in the Sierra this month, okay? We need about 10 feet, not 10 inches, but whatever the case, 46% of average. Here, I took this off of weather.com this morning, just before I came here. So this is about 9, 10 o'clock Eastern time. All right, and these are the cold, this is off weather.com, these are temperatures nationwide, and they only plotted those under 40, and this includes the wind chill. Okay, so it's pretty much the entire country. They only plotted the numbers that were below 40. All right, you can see here in the Great Lakes and in the heartland of America, I mean, these temperatures are all negative. Chicago, -7, Minnesota, -25, North Dakota, -23. Even on the East Coast, Boston, 18. Okay, so it's quite a contrast weather. And this is coming off all that snow last week. I mean, so here's a picture digging out of New Bedford, Massachusetts. This is Juneau. That's a car underneath there. Okay, here's here it is, a police officer ticketing an illegally parked car. Okay. Yeah, go figure. Let me talk about these stories. Oil and gasoline prices are tumbling, interest rates at record lows, housing is the problem. Why is that? But I first want to kind of underlie that by talking about the new normal. Why do we have a new normal? Why? And the hint is think the demographics. Think demographics for the new normal. Bill kind of touched on this, so did Terry. Okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, what does that mean? Here's another hint. Time to leave the past behind, right? It's time to change. And you're going to be seeing a lot more changes here going forward. The new normal, let me define that. A previously unfamiliar or an atypical situation that has or will become the standard, the usual, or the expected, okay? And that one of those is going to include slower growth in the economy, which we've seen, okay? And we clearly have lasting scars from the Great Recession. But nevertheless, how conditions are now is as good as they're going to get. All right, so the new normal. A lot of you didn't answer, this was my best year, or it's going to be my best year, or this is good times, or whatever the case, because you're stuck in the past thinking that we're going to repeat 2004, 2005, 2006. Not going to. What you're seeing in the economic cycle right now is as good as it is. All right? So stop whining. Right? And the reason I say that, not to be mean, but because we see this pessimism still is pervasive to some extent anyway. It's improving a lot, just like we've seen it here in this room. Okay, this was a survey just taken. I took this off the George Washington University website on December 18th, so about a month and a half ago. Overwhelmingly pessimistic Americans are about the economy. Okay, how could they be given the indicators that we're seeing? Here's the American Research Group survey. I've showed you this before. This is the number that respond, and this is tracked monthly all the way through January, so it's pretty fresh. This is numbers saying that the economy is bad to terrible, and you can see it's been above the green line, which is good to excellent, up until just January. So things have improved according to Americans and how they feel about the economy in January, but nevertheless, there is this general, downbeatness about the economy, all right? And improvement, yes. Is the economy getting better? Getting worse, okay, getting better. So there is some, light at the end of the tunnel, seeds of optimism there, but whatever the case, Americans have been answering it's worse than better for quite some time during this entire economic recovery and expansionary period, okay? Because they're not used to the new normal, which we're in right now. Low interest rates, a stronger dollar, and a very fickle housing market that's going to stay about where it is. The other big thing about the new normal is that we're seeing a lot more change. Bill talked about it, and I'm going to talk about it right now. okay? We're seeing gradual change more frequently, or maybe we're seeing frequent change more gradually. But whatever the case, it's redefining what's normal, okay? We've had these global influences in the past, and we had all the outsourcing. You know, many of these changes are due to global influences or impacts, shift in oil production, all the geopolitical issues that we've seen, and that's become a much more dominant thing these days. But mostly, what we're seeing in terms of changes is due to technology and demographics. And you know I've talked about this before, okay? But today I want to talk about the demographics at length. It's the aging baby boomer generation, okay, and the rise of Generation Y, or millennials. They are becoming much more economically relevant when in the past they haven't, okay? So let me get into that. Who was Kathleen Casey? Ever hear that name? Who was she? There she is. She's still living. That's her on her 65th birthday. Okay? She was born a second past midnight on January 1st, 1946 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was the first baby boomer. Okay, 76 million more people would be born during the next 19 years. That would be the largest surge of birthing in the history of the United States, and for that matter, in the history of the world. Never before have we seen that kind of a buildup in population, and we haven't seen it since, and likely are not to. Okay, that surge proved to be a major force in society and the economy here in America, and for that matter, worldwide. Boomers grew up in the 50s and 60s and were responsible for the explosion of schools in the 50s, okay? The onset of popular toys, Barbie, hula hoop, Etch-a-Sketch, Easy Bake ovens, right? G.I. Joe in 1964 with the popularity, or impopularity, I should say, of Vietnam. Right? Social change of the 60s and 70s, the drug culture, rock music, the British invasion, civil rights, environmental movements, all boomer-driven. Boomers entered colleges and universities in record numbers in the 60s to the mid-1980s. They became also the spendthrift consumers because they always thought there would be more resources later on. There would always be more, okay? So why save like our parents did? Let's spend it. Let's buy it. Okay? Boomers responsible for the housing booms of the 70s and the 80s and the first really run-up in equities of homes. Never seen that before. All right? Personal computer boom of the 80s and the 90s. Okay? Principal among their inventions. They had many, but some of them were electronics, cell phones, video games, the internet, along with Al Gore. Okay? Viagra in 1998, because they needed it. All right. Housing bubble, principally the boomer-driven. All right? The technology boom since 2000, in the demand for all these gadgets and electronics. But boomers now are growing old. Okay? Their impact on the economy is becoming, well, less than it has been. All right. Here's births in the United States going back to 1901. And demographers have divided, you know, the population into current demographic units or generations, right? And the first one shown here is the World War II, or the GI generation. You've probably heard about this, ending in about 1926. All right, you can see where that, and that was largely a big population boom spurred by immigration, not necessarily by natural increase. So it was significant population growth in the U.S. at that time, but mostly by immigration. Then came the swing generation, 1927 to about 1945. All right, kind of declining. This was the onset of the Great Depression era. All right, so there wasn't a lot of hope, and the economy was very sour, as you know. Then, of course, you can see the baby boom right there. 1946 to 1964. All right, biggest surge ever. After that, 1965 to about 1979, Generation X. And Xers, you can see they were born during a very declining time in births, right? During the stagnation of the 70s as well. There wasn't much going on. They were a small generation. Didn't really mean much at all to the economy. Still don't. So if you're between the ages of 35 and 49, you're just largely irrelevant. All right. Generation Y, about 1980 to 1999 or so. The boundaries are still a little bit nebulous. Or the millennial generation. And then after that, we're calling this Generation Z. Okay, 2000 to current. All right. If we look at the generations here, you can look at them by size. That right there is the World War II or GI generation, and you can see it started about 01 and peaks when it ends, 1926, and then moves laterally and then starts dying off. So that's how this works. That is the silent generation or swing generation. Okay. Never really was that big, as you know. Then the boomers. Big. Peaked in 1964, moves upward due to immigration, adding to the ranks, and then starts to decline. All right, and then that is Gen X, very small, never really eclipses the boomers. After that is Gen Y, all right, gets very big and will eclipse it through immigration. And then Gen Z is in purple right there. If I add the boomers onto the silents right now, that's pretty much the oldest generation, everybody 50 and over right there, that's what that line is. You can see that it just dominates everything. But, things are going to change here. About 2019 is when the lines cross. So we're coming up to where Gen Y becomes really the dominant generation cohort, age cohort in the United States. All right, so that has implications. 2014 was a seminal year because the last of the boomers turned 50. So that big line is 50 and over that you just saw. All right? Youngest boomer, there's a lot of media attention given to this. And so the question is, how are we going to profit from that? So that's what you should be asking yourself. As business leaders and entrepreneurs, what can you do to appeal to the 50 and over crowd right now? All right? This is important. What do boomers want? They represent 23% of the population, but they control 64% of the wealth in this country. So there's still a lot of economic force there. They don't want to hear, here's what they don't want. They don't want to hear themselves called old or senior citizens, okay? So try to refrain from doing that. They don't want to stop working. 74% in surveys that have been taken say that they'll never retire. 74%. A lot of them are becoming entrepreneurs now as they do retire from their W-2 job, right? A lot of reasons they can't retire is because they didn't save enough. They spent it all, okay? So entrepreneurial endeavors will be a big, motivation going forward. They want to exercise and looking good doing it. They want to have spandex biking gear and yoga pants that look good, right? That's it. They want to still involve themselves in extreme sports, river rafting, skydiving. We see a lot of that now. A home, this is a big one. They want a home to themselves, not with kids, parents, grandkids in it, which is what they're having to deal with now. Right? Right. 83% said they don't want to share their home, which they, of course, are doing right now. You can see that. When you look at the average household size in California, which I've shown you many times before, it's at an all-time high. As boomers are sharing their home with their kids, their grandkids, and their parents in a lot of ways. Okay, what do boomers want continued? They want travel, recreation. For the 50 crowd, experiential vacations, biking, hiking, cruise ships, exotic classes. You know this. senior-friendly communities, but they don't want the old sun cities of the past. 55 and over, age restricted. No, they just want them close to transportation and stores and health care. Not the traditional communities that we've seen. They still want to be involved in lots of music and concerts. Yes. I was at a Roger Waters concert at the Staples Center. He was the lead singer for Pink Floyd, and he did The Wall on his world tour 2 years ago. Took my 17-year-old at that time. I was about the youngest guy there. Other than my son. Smart technologies, especially healthcare, knee and hip replacements, okay? It's becoming big, driven by boomers, social media, to stay in contact with all their friends. Robots, drones, and other gadgets still want that stuff. The as seen on TV junk. You seen that? Here's an example. Sauna pants. What do you do with this? Who owns one of these? Come on, raise your hand. All right, here, fat magnet. Soaks up grease like a magnet. Right there, removes cholesterol, calories, flavor, and all the fun in your food. That's what the boomer generation did. All right? So that's what you need to think about. But now let's talk about Generation Y, born 1980 to 1990, currently in their 20s and 30s, have grown up with technology, connectedness, immediate information. Now, they need it now. Expectation is for immediacy. Okay? You can't say anything if you're talking to a Generation Yer, or millennial, if they've got their phone, you can't say anything speculative that you don't know is true fact because they'll look it up. Right there. Prove you wrong. Okay? Boomer parents have provided them with every emotional, educational, and physical need and want. The 8th place trophy. Okay? That includes shelter, which is often still the case today. They were impacted by the Great Recession and the stock market and directly experienced unemployment and financial problems associated with their parents and in some of the early ones themselves. They saw it. They saw their parents get laid off. They saw the financial problems. That's certainly formed them today, are less committed to employers as a result, sensing that the employers are less committed to them. They saw it happen to their parents. Hence, they're more likely to rent homes than buy, to remain flexible for job opportunities anywhere that they can go. And they'll move to different jobs and careers in different locations more often than their boomer parents did. Okay? Boomer parents advised them to seek an education field that they loved, right? And that job would always be waiting for them after graduation because it was for the boomers. This has ended up to become very bad advice, as we've seen. Okay? So expect less loyalty from Gen Y workers. All right? And a desire for more time off. They'll want more time off to explore non-work endeavors. Their behavior towards purchasing homes, autos, big-ticket items has been affected, along with their behavior towards employment. It's just completely affected. And their careers. So the new normal that we're talking about now we'll see different consumption patterns changing along with different employment patterns. Okay, that's what you can expect. They have delayed adulthood in general. All right? They will buy homes later, if at all. Right? They will be employed in their ultimate career field later, and they'll likely switch jobs and even careers many times over. They don't have much money now. Okay? And they're carrying a lot of debt, student loan debt, for the most part. So staying at home in their boomer parents' homes is smart to them. That's smart living. Okay? And one of the things that they're able to take advantage of right now is cheap gasoline prices, because oil prices have fallen sharply. So it's pretty much helped us all, including the Gen Ys. All right? So here's the benchmark price of oil daily going up through yesterday, and it ended at about $49 a barrel. It's up from its low of 44, but this is over the last year or so. Very sharp decline in oil prices. Just last June, they were 108. So this has been one of those startling observations that we've seen. And of course, gasoline prices have fallen. The average on Monday was $2.49 in California for regular grade. All right, we haven't seen it that low in 6 years. All right, this is a big savings. This puts a lot of money in everyone's pocket. Just do the math. The average price of gasoline was $3.96 for that 2.5-year period, 2012 to June of last year. Today it's $2.49. That's $1.47 a gallon. Now, if you fill up your 15-gallon tank once a week, that's 780 gallons you use a year. Okay, you multiply that out, you save $1,150 based on these assumptions. Fill up more, you save a lot more, right? That's like a tax cut. You got a tax cut of $1,000 this year if this persists. It's pretty good. It's going to cause a lot more spending on other things. All right? That's going to be helpful to all generations, not just Y. Why is this happening? Because production is so far up in this country. That's one of the main reasons. There's oil production through December in the U.S. Look how much that spiked. It's soared. I mean, we're at the highest point we've seen since 1970, when we used to be the world's largest producer. We're almost to that point again. Okay? Almost. Texas, North Dakota, Alaska, California, and Oklahoma are the top 5 oil producers. The ones that are contributing to this run-up are those 3. Not Alaska, not California, at least not yet. All right? So we've got significant increases in supply. We've got world oil demand by China and India and Europe also softening significantly, and growth will be weaker in 2015. The U.S. dollar has strengthened, okay, so that reduces the overall price. The value of the oil relative to the dollar is weakened. And then cheaper gasoline standards in the winter by refineries, so you don't have to mix the higher expensive additives. And then we haven't had any hurricanes in the Gulf that have shut down refineries and limiting supply in the last few years. Right? We have very few refinery shutdowns in general in maintenance. So that's given us lots of supply. So that's the reason. There's the dollar increase, dollar versus the euro. It's at the highest level since, you got to go back to September of 2003. So what does this mean for you? This means lower gasoline prices. It also means you should be planning that trip to Europe. You know, right now. Do it right now because everybody's doing it. If you want a hotel, plan. Get on your iPhone right now. All right? I mean, we've seen 20% increases in the value of the dollar just versus the euro in the last 9 months. Okay? So the value of the dollar is expected to continue to rise this year. And we're going to see lower prices right now, and those lower prices are reducing the investment opportunities or investment potential on the part of producers. So we're not seeing as much exploration and much production. So we're going to see oil prices turn around. All right? The debate is how much will we see production decline based on these very low prices so that they go back up. We think that they'll be between about 60 and 70. They're currently at about 50. Okay, so there's the forecast by the Energy Information Administration of the U.S. government for the rest of the year or monthly for oil prices. So expect them to rise, but they're not going to get back to where they were. So you can expect cheaper gasoline prices, barring any calamitous, and unanticipated geopolitical event. You can expect these to stay low for the rest of the year, okay, which is going to add to your disposable income in general. Let me summarize the economic evidence right now. The recovery is now long over. We're in an expansion. Most of the indicators are at unprecedented levels. Growth has accelerated based on spending, hiring, all the business spending that we're seeing. Confidence in the economy has been fully restored from the Great Recession. Okay? Businesses are upbeat. Consumers are upbeat. And this is consistent with an economy that is expanding actually above potential. The 10-year Treasury bond went all the way down to 1.67 in January. Okay, second lowest in 214 years. This has been pieced together by analysts because we didn't have a 10-year U.S. Treasury or a long-term until about 1940. But we had other interest rates that could proxy them. So here, this goes back to 1800. All right? And there's the 2% line right there. And you can see that it went below that in December of 1940. All right? And also in July of 2012, but only twice in the last 214 years. And now we've gone below, the December 1940 level. So these are the lowest interest rates, essentially, that are unprecedented in your lifetime and in many lifetimes before that, for that matter. And it's coming at a very strange time because when we look at the economic cycle, here I ask, where are we and why that's of interest to you? Let's pinpoint where we are and why you should have answered A and B to the original slide question at the beginning. So here's a cycle, right? It could be anything. It could be GDP, it could be production, it could be sales, it can be employment, it can be any economic indicator, okay? And that's the expansionary phase of the cycle. That's the recessionary stage. Then you hit the trough, and then you hit recovery, and then you're back in expansion when you eclipse pretty much the previous peak. I figure we're about right there, okay? We don't know how long that's going to last. But there's about where we are. We're nearing the top. The top can last for a while, all right? But that's pretty much where we are. So, take advantage of this situation. Take advantage. Get ready for the next downturn. I talked to you about that last September, as when the timing of that would be. And I'll revisit that next time we meet, all right? But we are above the previous peak. We are in expansionary territory. It's not going to get too much better than what you see right now. Here's GDP growth, that's second, third, and fourth, and there's basically been an acceleration of growth. It's still slow, but it's accelerated. All right, and financial markets are at all-time highs. Most of the indicators are at all-time highs. Here's job growth. There's the last 5 years, including this year. Look at that big run-up, 10.6 million jobs created in the U.S. economy. Big expansion. Haven't seen that since the 1990s. Right? So, these things don't occur with regularity, but it's occurring right now. Here's the unemployment rates down to 5.7%. All right? Here's California numbers, 339,000 last year. Okay? And over the last 4 years, 1.6 million. It's above its fair share. California's fair share of the nation is about 12%, not quite, but just about 12%. That's what the population is here relative to the nation. But we've created 15% of all the jobs in the last 4 years. So California is actually very strong relative to other places. There's the Dow ending yesterday. There's where it is, near an all-time record high. Right? Another nearly unprecedented indicator. Here's consumer confidence. You can look at any indices you want. Michigan, Conference Board, or Rasmussen, they're all high. They're all the highest they've been in anywhere between 6 and 10 years ago. Again, it doesn't happen every day. And you can see it more so, not necessarily with what people are saying, but with what they're doing. Spending. 62 months of expansion. That was the previous peak in December of 2007. We're way above that. Lots of expenditure now, and it's even going higher this year. All right, a lot of it is on cars and trucks. Okay, the largest car sales, Toyota Camry. I think I've asked you this before. That's number 1. 2, Honda Accord. Civic, 3. Altima, 4. Who drives one of these cars? About 20% of you? This is what you drive? You have lost all your identity. This is what everybody drives. No, but being at this level of car sales is a very rapid pace. It's a major part of overall consumption right now. Value of exports, despite the stronger dollar, which really hasn't started to affect the data here yet because you're not seeing it. But through November, nevertheless, we've seen all-time record highs in export values from the U.S. All right, and inflation, very low. December's came in at 0.8% year over year, less than 1%. We've had virtually no inflation for the last 3 years. Last year, the annual average was 1.6, nothing. Okay, it's likely to be contained this year too, but things will start to drive it upward. All right, so here's your takeaways for the U.S. economy. We're in an expansion. Don't call it a recovery. We've seen jobs, spending, business investment on equipment and software, exports, financial markets. Even the government sector is stabilized finally. All right? 7 of 8 cylinders firing. What isn't firing? Housing, right. Housing. All right? I mean, it's struggling. It's trying to get up there. There's a million starts, okay? That's sort of the benchmark for economists to look at for housing starts. Slowly gaining momentum, at least it eclipsed its recessionary levels. It needs to be at 1.6, the top of the chart. That's where it needs to be now. All right? That would be more consistent, more in alignment with where we are in the expansion, in the cycle. But it's not. Existing home sales. We had a big rally, and a lot of that was due to investor purchases, then a relapse, trying to rally again. But, it's disappointing, the housing market, existing home sales overall. And that's despite mortgage rates, tumbling. Jumbo, conventional, doesn't matter. There's the 4% mark. We can see they've been below it for the last 3-4 months. It's just not jump-starting the housing market anymore because it's a different market. It's demographically driven right now. So I asked you this last September, what happened to the demand for housing, and I put up these answers, and their answers were, we like having our 20-something kids live in our house. And we like living with our parents, and we like our parents living with us. So we don't need another house. We don't need to buy, or we're renting. That was the answer 6 months ago. It's still the answer today, and certainly when you look at rental vacancies. This is for the third quarter of last year. Fourth quarter is just coming in now, but they're all really low. There's the East Bay and Sacramento, right? Very, very low rates. Everything's under 5%, and if it's not, it's just above it. So that's a very tight market throughout California, throughout the nation, for that matter, for rental rates. Here's the Dyer Sheehan numbers that are very, very fresh through January. The last 2 years, it's under 3% apartment vacancy, county-wide, extremely tight. One of the tightest ever seen, ever recorded. All right? Why? Why is that? Because, Generation Y is not buying. Here it is. The share of 18 to 34-year-olds that own homes. Right? Here we are. This is the lowest level ever since data has been accumulated on this. The lowest. Started about 2005 there. That's when it started to really decline. So the Generation Y doesn't own like previous 18 to 34-year-old groups right now. It's low. It's probably even go lower. Okay? Here's 18 to 34 living with their parents. Right? All-time high. At least all-time high in the modern era. I'm sure it was higher during the clans on the savannah. But we're back to that. All right? And again, 2005 is the turning point. Right? So here's my new quiz now, 6 months later. Why aren't you buying housing? All right? Hey, I'm a millennial. I don't mind living with my parents. This is sort of a complex or combined question. Because, B, my job and salary sucks and I can't find a higher paying job. Who says that? Come on, just answer like you're a Gen Yer. Not too many here. My student loan debt's too high, so I can't afford housing, right? I can't get a conventional mortgage. Criterias. It's all three of these, right? So yes, that's the problem. Student loan debt is a problem. Here's some information for you for the class of 2013, right? Average debt for a graduate in the U.S. is $28,000, right? In California, it's 20. Proportion of graduating seniors with debt, nearly 70%. 70%. Average payment per month, $250. Okay? Number of households impacted, 6 million. Lots. Default rate. You default 9 months, they start defaulting you 9 months after you stop making payments on your student loan. So within 3 years, 14% of graduating seniors have stopped making payments and are defaulting. Okay, so it's a problem. It's chronic. Debt was 250 billion in 2004, and now it's 1 trillion, and the 2014 numbers are 1.3 trillion. So it's quintupled in 10 years. It's quintupled. And the demand for, schools is at an all-time high by Gen Y. Here's the UC system, all-time high enrollment. Right? Cal State system, all-time high. Right? Colleges are really taking advantage of the demand, raising fees. Here's the CPI, so this is the inflation rate in all products going back to 1980 to current. So it rises slowly, goes from to 150% back from 1980 prices. But for a 4-year college, it's 600, so it's gone up 4 times the rate. When we went to school, we were in this era, and yeah, it was still deviating, but it wasn't 4 times the rate of the general CPI back then. So, price of school is one of the big issues, and it's really affected things since about 2000 in a big way. All right? And, the demand just hasn't been there, and therefore production of housing hasn't occurred. Right? Not much new housing is being produced. Look at that housing production in 2014 for California. It's abysmal at this stage in the economic cycle. All right? Now, if you just look at the apartments being started, it's a different story. It's the single-family homes that no one's building. So multifamily units is at the highest points in 2006. Very rapid right now, and because that's the demand for apartments kicking in. Here's housing production in Ventura County. Looks just as ugly, maybe even a little uglier. Okay? Single family, there's much more apartments being built here now. Right? That's where most of the demand, but not much single family, not yet. All right, and as a result, here's this average household figure again that I showed you for California. Here's Ventura County, all-time record high. All right, this is an imbalance. It will be corrected at some point in time, but it could take years before this changes. So just note that that's what's occurring right now. Housing prices have also corrected upward, and that limits Gen Y's ability to purchase right now. There's California. There's the December numbers. You can see this big run-up. We're now 85% higher in price than we were off the Great Recession low. 85% higher right now in housing prices. And for Ventura County, it's 57% higher off the low. So again, the time to buy was 3-4 years ago. And there where we are. Now we seem to see a leveling off occurring right now. Right there. You can see we're plateauing, and when we look at appreciation rates for Ventura County, there they are. They've been slowly declining over the past 12 months. So we've seen 4% average appreciation in California last year, and 5 to 10 by local area here in Ventura County. That's been our appreciation, but you can see that it's starting to level off to nothing at this point in time in the housing market. Nevertheless, prices have still run up. So that's caused a lot of housing to slip from the grasp of any Generation Y wanting to buy. That's another reason. Okay? So the new normal for the housing market following Bill is, well, 2014 didn't impress us at all, but don't wait for this sharp increase in housing to occur as part of the recovery or the expansion. It's not going to occur. It's not going to occur like we thought it would 2 years ago, because we're now seeing sort of the set behavior continue. All right? More people are working, and incomes are going to move higher, so you're going to see some increase in demand, and you're going to see some increase in sales. So we do look for some rebound, but it's not going to be like we thought. Mortgage rates are going to remain contained. They're going to move up, but this owning versus renting preferences is going to be really the dominant characteristic or feature which is going to limit demand. Okay? Boomers are pretty much set in their housing. They're not going to buy a bunch more homes. You can't rely on them. They were the ones that really propelled all the previous big housing cycles over the last 30 years. That's over. It's Gen Y that you got to rely on, but they're in no condition to replace, the way that boomers bought homes. That same phenomena. They're in no condition at this time, and yet they're becoming the largest generation. So that's the major change. So here's the big question. So here's existing home sales in California going back to the turn of the century, this century, and that was, of course, the housing bubble. And that was the clearance sale by investors on foreclosures. And here we are now. Okay? The question is this the new normal? This level? We think it'll be above this, but not much above this. And certainly enough, when you look at stuff by forecasters and by housing organizations and things like that online, there's a lot of feeling that housing's going to rebound this year. But don't expect a major rebound. Expect some, because conditions have improved. But it's not going to be that great. Mortgage rates are going up. We have them going up to just under 5% this year. They're currently just under 4% by the end of the year. And then they continue moving up, but they never get as high as they were. So you're in a low interest rate environment. All right, you're going to see more units production in California, more so than we saw in the last couple of years. So that's going to occur, but it's not going to repeat like it had. The apartment market is, though, to cater to all the Gen Yers who will ultimately either move out of their parents' home or will get kicked out. Okay? Because boomers want a free and clear and empty house. All right? Here's my summary. We're experiencing the expansionary phase of the cycle. Unemployment rates are falling. We'll be at full employment by the end of this year or beginning of next year in the U.S. economy. Most indicators are rising. Okay? The only laggard sector is housing. But as I said before, keep in mind that we are in year 6 of the housing recovery / expansion. So we've got to start thinking about when the next downturn is. And I will update you on when that thinking is next time. All right, here's GDP growth. There's where we were last year, 2.2, and we are going to have some breakout years ahead of us. So these could be the best years of the current cycle right ahead of us. We don't know past 2016. Let me give you a few notes on California. All right, the engines of growth are technology, computer design, within technology, healthcare, tourism, export markets. That's what's propelling California right now. The epicenters are the Bay Area for the most part. But now all areas of the state are participating, even the inland areas. And I'm not going to talk about the budget, but it is okay for the moment. I'll get into that later, particularly when we start seeing sunsets on Prop 30, which are coming up. All right? Legislature is starting to get used to all this income tax coming in, and they're spending a lot more of it now. So again, an update later on that. Here's exports in California. I kind of went past that quickly, but they're at all-time record highs. The value of exports leaving California ports, Oakland, Long Beach, LA for the most part. Okay, that's a major engine right now. Export orientation and tourism. Hotel-motel occupancy rates are the highest they've ever been in California. Okay, bumping up against 74%. Ventura County, they're bumping up against 78%. Other places, 80%, like San Francisco. Unprecedented numbers. Here's where the principal areas, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Bay Area. That's where lots of the tremendous amount of euphoria is occurring in economic or employment growth right now. Then I've lumped Orange County, San Diego, Ventura County all together there. East Bay, there's Inland Empire, LA, and then the average for the US. You can see many of our major areas are eclipsing the rate of growth in the US in terms of jobs. So these are some relatively stellar conditions. We haven't seen it like this in quite some time right now in terms of job growth. I showed you this earlier. We created a lot of jobs last year in California, all right? And a lot of them are in the tech areas. Computer systems design, all-time high, all-time high, all right? And then scientific and technical services, more technology, all-time high through December. Employment and software, okay? Now here's something Generation Y is driving, all the games. The gaming industry is huge. A lot of that is in here, all-time high level in California, all right? A lot of these are office-using jobs. Most of them are office-using jobs. So we're seeing demand for office space rise significantly. Look at the rates in San Francisco and Santa Clara counties. The best, lowest in California. Then Orange, San Diego, Sacramento, et cetera. They're all falling now. They're all falling. Things are tightening up. And as a result, we're seeing a lot more building in commercial industrial structures in California. It's not happening in housing, but it is happening in commercial structures. So you can see much more investment there in California. Let me move to Ventura County real quick. Some of the principal themes or recent evidence is the expansion here, like California, is very broad. All right, salaries, and for that matter, overall personal income is rising finally in Ventura County. Commercial real estate's bouncing back, home price appreciation, that has leveled off. As I showed you, the housing market is, well, it is what it is, as you've seen it, and that includes new housing. But commuting still is a big issue, and it's growing in Ventura County for Ventura County residents. Here's the number of residents working that have jobs for Ventura County residents. All right, there's an all-time high. It's eclipsed the previous peak. So we got more people that live here that work than ever before in the history of the county. And the unemployment rate, there it is over time, has dipped to less than 6% in the most recent month of reporting, December. So we're making progress on all of these levels in Ventura County. There's job growth. That's for California, and that's for Ventura County over time. Why has that gap opened? Why aren't we creating jobs at the same rate as the rest of the state? Why are we lagging? What happened to Ventura County here? There's a couple of things happening. One of the things, a lot of the jobs that people have are not here. Okay, they're in other counties. Take a look at that. Here's Ventura County and its neighbors. And when we look at commuting patterns, here's what they look like. Okay? Venturans going to Santa Barbara to work, 11,000 every day. Going to Los Angeles, 67,000. Right? Going into Kern County, not too many, 387. All right? And going over to Orange County, 1,100 or 1,200 people. And these are 2010 numbers, or the average ending in 2010. So it's only increased from here because the job growth in Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, and Kern has been greater than in Ventura County over the last 4 years. Okay, so we know the numbers are even higher, but that's 80,000 people that leave here every day to jobs in other counties. They have jobs. Those jobs aren't counted here, all right? So that's one of the reasons we're below the rest of the state. Now, if you go the other way, so 1,900 is the number of Santa Barbarans that come into Ventura County, and et cetera. And when you add them all up, that gives us 40,000. So still, people do cross commute, but a lot more Venturans leave than people come in here for jobs. So we still largely have a bedroom community identity here when you look at the numbers, all right? So that's one of the reasons that we're below the state. We also have the Amgen effect. You know, Amgen announced last year a big job cut. And then in October, they announced more cuts. Okay? So here's the what Amgen looks like over time, all the way through January of this year when we do our largest employment survey. So they're at the lowest point they've been since 2003. Okay, and this has a big effect on overall employment in Ventura County. Now, cutting employment, of course, is good for the stock price, and the stock price of Amgen is way up there. But in terms of the Ventura County labor market, it has produced a drag, right? Job creation within the county lags the state. Why? The Amgen effect is part of it. Commuting is the other part. Without Amgen, Ventura County creates nearly 5,600 jobs, the most in 8 years, and it would raise the job growth numbers, materially. So clearly the downsizing has produced this drag on the Ventura County economy. But thank God the timing is fortunate because, we're in an economic expansion, so we don't see it like we would if we weren't. All right, so thank God it's coming at this point in the business cycle. More residents are working. So instead of 5,600 jobs, we had 4,800 created in Ventura County last year. But that's a meaningful difference, when you subtract out Amgen. All right, where are we creating it? Professional and business services and the hospitality industry. Those are the principal sectors of growth here. Then education, retail, et cetera. I won't bore you with the details, but thank yourselves for having professional business services be one of the leading industries because it tends to be higher paying as well. Okay, so it's helping overall the economy. Here it is over time. It's run up significantly, and it's at an all-time record high in Ventura County. All right. Now, these create a lot of office jobs, too. And when we look at the office market, it is rallying, okay, the office employment. So these people need office space, and we certainly are seeing that with the office market now. Not significantly with vacancy rates, but we're seeing a lot more activity occur in the office market than we've seen in many years here in Ventura County. Here, take a look. Here's Orange County, and it looks a lot like Ventura County, but it's at an all-time high in office using jobs. And the vacancy rate in Orange County has fallen significantly. Okay, it's the third major metro area in terms of low occupancy rates behind the Bay Area. So Orange County is doing much better. Here in Ventura County, last year, 1.7 million in gross absorption. So lots of leasing activity in the Ventura County office market, significantly. All right, and there's industrial absorption. It was big too. So we're seeing a lot more activity and movement overall in commercial real estate. All right, we should be seeing it at this point in the expansion. That's causing vacancy rates to fall, although you don't see it that much in the occupancy in the office market yet, but you will. Okay, there it is, fourth quarter, end of the year. All right, still high at 22%. Industrial vacancy has come down as well. So the markets are tightening in commercial due to the job growth and due to the overall expansionary, phase that we're in the economy right now. Okay, retail vacancy has also, declined and sharply in the fourth quarter. So now it's below 7% countywide. A lot of that's due to a lot of the spending that's going on at all the major centers. Okay, so there it is. And even the forecast looking forward is for that spending to continue. Okay, because incomes are getting stronger, employment's getting stronger overall. In fact, that leads us to the forecast in the end of my presentation. So here it is really quickly. Here's a recap on the highlights for forecast. The environment today is really the result of demographic forces that are in flux. It's in flux. Okay, today is largely, what you see today is the new normal. All right, we're seeing much more hiring, but it's basically of skilled workers because as I've talked to you before, a lot of the unskilled workers are being replaced by automation. So we're not hiring many of those. Full employment in California will occur by mid-2016. It's already full in Orange County. Salaries, therefore, because of the tightness of the labor markets, which is coming, be here this year, will be adding to inflation. You're going to see higher incomes, okay? Don't underestimate that 18 to 34-year-old population, which is at an all-time high right now. They're Gen Yers right now, and that's going higher, all right? So that's a big demographic force in this state, in this nation right now. Job growth over in California will continue, probably be a little bit higher this year, and then starting to trail off after 2015, but still be impressive, and it'll get us to full employment in California by no later than mid-2016. Okay, so look for tighter labor markets, rising salaries. If you're an HR, if you're a business owner, you're going to have to pay higher to get skilled workers because the labor market's tightening. It's not like it used to be. All right, so look for salaries will rise. They're already rising overall in California and in Ventura County. They haven't really moved much. There they are, adjusted for inflation. They've been kind of level for the last 10 years, but they're going to be moving higher because of the tightening. Okay, and our critical occupations here are in the professional and business services and the technical end. That's where they are, right there. Professional tech, that's a salary over time, going back 12 years. They're rising, all right? And then healthcare and then leisure. Those are the other two industries which are creating lots of jobs. Those are below the average. Then if you look at some of the other industries, there's financial. The two top ones here are manufacturing and utilities. We don't see many jobs created there. And then information is there. Some job creation occurring there in that industry, which is helping. There's the average overall for all industries. Professional and technical information are the ones that are really kind of driving, and they will drive the average up. Plus, you'll see higher salaries in leisure and healthcare going forward because of the tightening labor markets. Overall incomes in California have been rising over the last 5 years. This is going to continue. This is what's powering the state's revenues right now. This is one of the most important things to look at from a state's point of view in its budgetary cycle, because this is going to provide lots of revenues for the schools. Median family incomes are even going to start rising, and they've been essentially stagnant for the last 10 years. So in general, all boats will be rising with the tide, okay, over the next few years. But according to what we think is the new normal, the recovery in housing is not going to be prolific. It's going to occur, but don't expect what we've seen in the past because of the changing demographic forces that are occurring, okay? We'll see more new housing production as well, but it will never be like it used to be in last decade or in the 80s or 90s. It's much slower growth, much less demand overall, okay? Home selling prices will continue to rise because we don't have much supply, okay? So look for your appreciation to rise slowly, though, at single-digit rates per year, not double digits like we've seen. So finally, what can you expect in the next 2 years? Some breakout years, 2 more years of expansion, it looks like. We can see pretty clear about 18 months. After that, it gets blurry. But barring any major unanticipated event, we don't see recession, okay? Best years of the cycle. So make hay while the sun shines, right? Okay. More hiring will occur, especially of skilled workers, full employment, rising salaries, rising incomes. Okay, and that's going to help expenditure. So if you're a proprietor, business owner, take advantage of these times right now. All right, this is it. If you don't think that this is going to be your best year, well, something's wrong. It should be. Okay, or next. Housing sector is going to remain normal. Bill Dallas normal. Right? The new normal is the rise of Generation Y and the decline of the boomer generation. And that's particularly true in real estate. And with that, expect slower growth and a lot more changes. Okay? Gasoline prices will stay under $3 or should be around there. Plan that trip to France right now while you can. This is the time. Do it. And we have a clear outlook, just like we had last time. Okay, there it is. It's kind of a silver lining because we need rain. All right, so here is my parting notes about the book. The book you have in your hand is just the executive summary and forecast. It's our sort of cut down, abridged version. The longer book, which is 124 pages in full color, is a PDF online, just produced. We just finished it yesterday. So go to our website. That's what it looks like, the home page, right? And that's at californiaforecast.com. And move to the lower right, the bottom right, and click on the book. What does the book look like? Well, you have it in your hands. Just click on it, and you'll be asked for a password, and the password is Gen Y. Gen Y, lowercase, Gen Y, okay? And you can download 124 pages of magnificent facts. All right, that is it, and we will reconvene in September for an update. Thank you very much.